Oh god, I hate wine. Hi, how's it going? I got this for free. It's fine. We're not here to talk about wine. I'm not a wine person. Ugh. um, we're, we're here to talk about musicals, so I'm wearing my most musical appropriate attire. Godzilla. I don't have any musical themed t-shirts, unfortunately. Most of them are just horror films, because if you know me, you know that I love horror movies. And so last February, I decided, this is 2024, I decided to watch 28 Giallos. Those are Italian slasher films, because I have a lot of them on physical media. Hey, look, it's that thing that I talk about. And so I was coming around to January, and I'm thinking, I'm kind of in the mood to just do that thing again, where I watch a bunch of films that all relate to one particular genre. And this one was a bit more of a stretch because this is musicals. So I wanted to watch 28 musicals in February. You know, do 28 days consecutive, try to not skip a beat. And outside of like one workaround where I swapped two movies on 2 different days because one of them was shorter so that I can go out and watch a movie, I managed to watch the 28 days of musicals, varying from 1933 with Showtime, Swing Time, all the way to 2024 with Wicked. It was a hell of a thing. Wicked came out on Blu-ray the week that I was finishing this up, and I'm like, perfect. I'm buying that 4K, haven't seen it, let's hope it's good. So in this video, I'm going to detail all the 28 films I've watched, and also talk about the extra 12 I've watched. I've watched 40 musicals, technically. These aren't all musicals, they're not all the time people break down into song. Sometimes they are. Most of them I just had on physical. I wanted to watch them because I had them on physical, with one difference because it happened to be on streaming. Which I didn't even have the streaming service. I had to use my brother's girlfriend's streaming service. Who'd have thought it? But we got that on the TV, so it's all good. Most of these were films I had not seen before. Some of them were rewatches, but they've been rewatches that I have not logged on Letterboxd kind of deal, so I haven't watched them for a good period of time. I wanted to reassess a lot of them. Some of them I watched avidly in my childhood, and just haven't watched them since then. And then the extra ones I just threw in there because I was just kind of in the mood to still watch more musicals, mostly because I either had more or I had people suggesting, oh, if you're going to watch musicals, you've got to watch this, you've got to watch that. And then sometimes I want to revisit ones that I didn't have on my list because I didn't want to put them on my list. You know, I didn't watch Rocky Horror. I'm just going to put that out there. I didn't watch Rocky Horror. There's going to be so many musicals where you're going to, if you're a big musical person, you'd be like, Julian, come on, you could have watched this, you could have watched that. And yes, you're right. There are so many that I can still watch, and there's a lot more to go. And that's what's so great about the genre, is that it spans 100-odd years. It's really, really interesting to have seen it develop from 1933 through to 2024. Almost 100 solid years of musicals. I probably could have tried to go for something from the 1920s to do 100 years of musicals, but I didn't want to do that. I don't think I have any musicals from prior to the 30s, to be completely fair. But I probably do. I don't know. I've got so many of them, and half the time I don't even know that they're musicals. I'm just buying them for other reasons. Some of them were also films I had bought because my friend who passed away last year did commentary tracks on them, so hence I watched a bunch of them because he did commentary tracks, and I haven't listened to the commentary tracks, but now I can, you know? Easy access. So I'm going to go through my 28 films, then I'm going to go for the extra 12, give you my star ratings of each film, slight anecdotes as to what I think was good about it and what was bad, noteworthy, and a bad takeaway, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Do I need to preface that I'm not a huge musical person? Like, I don't go out of my way to watch musicals, but I'm not against the genre either. Like, I know a lot of people hate musicals, but I think a lot of people just hate when people just break out of the song, which is fair. It can be weird when you sing your emotions at people. It's weird. I understand. It's not a very usual thing to do in the reality, but that's what's so fun about musicals. They ain't based in reality. Most of them are based on Broadway shows. Anyway, or they're like readaptations of original narratives just with music added to it. Oh my god, the Roger and Hammerstein's films are mostly just that. It is fucking mental. So, let's go to my Letterboxd list, where I will link it down below. It won't include the extra 12 films, so that's exclusive to this video, if you care to even watch this video. 28 Days, 28 Musicals from 1936, not 33, I'm stupid. 1936 to present. 90 years, basically. Oh my god. Alright, so we started with 1936's Swing Time. I watched the Criterion. I really enjoyed it. I'm not very accustomed to Fred Astaire films, so to see him do his tap dancing thing was great. Ginger Rogers was fun. There was blackface in the movie, which also really cemented the idea that I'm going to finish this with Wicked, because start with blackface, end with greenface kind of works. I didn't expect the blackface stuff, gotta be honest. I know it's homage-y. It's, meant to be an homage to the guy who actually did the original dance, but it's one of those, man, the workaround could have easily been, don't paint your face black, or just get the guy who did the dance to do the dance. Yeah, but it's one of those, I wouldn't say Fred Astaire was the racist guy. Clearly it's a studio thing, he didn't want to do it, and he was taught by black people to dance, so he's not a racist person. I've read a lot of shit about this. The Criterion has a great video essay talking about all this stuff, or at least just blackface in cinema. It's a tough thing to look at, but at the same time, look, that's history. You got to look at it and you got to analyze it and understand what was the shortcomings. So as much as you do get some great side characters, some great comedy, some great romance, some great tap dancing and musical bits, it does have that, and it's kind of a bit of a slap in the face when that number does come up. The whole, I think it's Bojangles part. Yeah, Bill Bojangles Robinson. There you go. It's a homage, but it's still racist because it's blackface. Anyway, now looking at pure Americana, totally not racist, 100% cemented in just white people. That's right, we're talking about State Fair from 1945. This is part of the Rodgers and Hammerstein set that I have, and it's fine. I gave it 3 stars. I'm like, it's perfectly fine. Like, it doesn't go too hard in any direction. It's just, there's a state fair, we got animals that we got to win awards with, we got food we got to win awards with, we got to do some singing and dancing and some romance. Yeah, it's fine. It's very, it's like watching a sitcom that goes for 2.5 hours, where, it starts, you get your crazy bit in the middle where, all the status quo has been thrown up in the air, and then by the end everything's just back to normal again. There's no actual changes. I think doesn't the female lead get a love interest by the end of it? Yeah, she does. Ain't that nice for her? Good for her. The guy, on the other hand, realizes, I gotta go back to that neighbor. She's hot. Anyway, the Bandwagon. I don't even think there's anything really outstanding about State Fair. Not really. The Bandwagon. Again, another Fred Astaire film. This was a DVD I have that my dad suggested. And The Bandwagon's interesting because it's Vincent Minnelli, I believe? Yeah. Vincente Minnelli. It's a really iconic musical, which is fair. Like, you can see why, and the aircon's about to pump in, so sorry about that. Visually, you can see why. It looks beautiful. Fred Astaire's great. It's got that classic narrative of the aging, actor, musician, whatever, has to realize what position they're in and try to adjust to it. And I think the narrative is interesting. I just don't think the execution of how the narrative intertwines with the actual, play that they're putting on works. Like, the first half of the film is all about them putting on a big show, and you see them making the show, and then the show sucks. And then they go to put on a different show, and you don't see them making the show, but you do see the end result. And the end result has some great musical numbers that are really iconic. One of them became a Michael Jackson number, like 30, 40 years later. It's really iconic. But in the narrative context of the play itself, it's like, how did you get from Babies to Smooth Criminal? And then, at the same time, you juxtapose that to the narrative that's actually being told, and it doesn't really work. Like, there's no parallels or anything. If you think of, like, Singing in the Rain, or even The Red Shoes, the play, the show, the movie that they're putting on is a reflection, narratively, of what they're doing in real life. So, it's a bit hit or miss in that area, but at least it looks nice, the music's fun, it has some great numbers in the last act, even if they don't really connect well with what you've already seen. Then you get Oklahoma from 1955. I did a lot of 50s ones. That was a choice. Oklahoma was, again, gotta love Americans in there. Hey, look at us. We got big farms and tractors and stuff. And also, I don't civil disputes. Woof. It looks pretty. It has some good numbers. It's got some iconic numbers at least. I knew these before watching the film, which was good. I do like the weird interlude before the intermission where it becomes a whole ballet dream sequence, which I really liked. I thought that was fun. The rest of the narrative itself is very expected. It's very safe by the books. The musical stuff is people standing there and singing at each other. It's fine. Like, if you like that style of musical, much like with most of the Rodgers and Hammerstein, it's perfectly fine. I still enjoyed it. I thought it had a good cast and some good numbers, and that middle part really stood out as something really fun and visually interesting. And again, shot on location, so it looks really pretty, the Technicolor vistas, all that kind of stuff. The Technicolor films, holy shit, did they look good. Eventually these become like colored by deluxe and stuff like that, and sometimes they still look really good. Or Eastman color. I do like, original film prints. They're great, aren't they? But yeah, I wouldn't throw away Oklahoma as nothing, but it's also not revolutionary. It's very by the numbers, which is fine. Then you get The Court Jester from 1955, which I gave 4 stars. This one was a fun rewatch. I grew up watching this one because Danny Kaye was always a fun person to watch when you were 4 or 5 years old. And this one, I actually have the Paramount Presents Blu-ray, which is an 8K restoration. It is fucking stunning. Incredible visuals, but it's also just a really fun film. The musical element is very minimal in it. It's much more of a kind of swashbuckling comedy that just happens to have musical bits that he just sings and dances in, which is really fun. It just livens up the movie a little bit. You get an opening number during the credits. You get a couple more in the middle, but there's not really much to take away from it as a musical. It's more or less the rest of the film. The musical parts are just little bonuses, just for character stuff. It's alright, It's not great as a musical, but it's fun as a film. Then you have Carousel from 1956. Yeah, like I said, Rodgers and Hammerstein. This one was awful. I gave it 1 star. It's long, arduously long, and that's saying a lot because a lot of these films, like 2 to 3 hour long films, it's mental, which is another reason people don't like watching musicals, because people are singing instead of talking, and because they're not talking, the singing takes forever because the songs are like 3 to 4 minutes long each, and that just adds to the runtime. And I get it. And then you got the dance numbers without any singing, and it's like, it looks pretty, but it doesn't add to the story. So if you want to be analytical that way, sure, but you got to understand this is a forum. Like, it's like watching a slasher film, being annoyed that people keep getting murdered. It's like that's part of the build. It's part of the style and the genre. You got to appreciate that as much as everything else. You can't just strip the musical numbers out and expect to have the same narrative. Especially because most of the musical numbers are people singing their thoughts and emotions, or whatever cliche you want to go for. But at the same time, Carousel is a movie about how domestic abuse is great. You should totally do it, especially if you then die because you're an idiot, and then you come back to life for one day only to physically abuse your daughter. And she says that she likes it, so either she has a weird kink, which is perfectly fine if it's consensual, but in this case it ain't consensual, and it's literally promoting the idea of domestic abuse. So, yeah. Also, the carousel thing is in the first 3 minutes of the movie, and they have a whole song and dance number about a carousel, and then the rest of the movie never goes back to the carousel. They say, I used to be good at carouseling, but now I gotta be a fisherman. Fuck my life. And that's like the rest of the movie. And then he dies, because he's an idiot. And a criminal, but mostly an idiot, and then he comes back to life. It's stupid. It's not good. I would not ever recommend it to anyone. It's bad. I don't even think there was any good numbers in it musically. Like, it's just boring as shit. It's really boring. And really creepy. And boring. Anyway, The King and I from 1956. Oof, the better movie from that year. This one was much better. My only issue with it is the fact that you can clearly tell that these people have done the stage musical before, so they don't need countless shots to different takes to get it all right. So because of that, a lot of the movie takes place in like a lot of single take scenes, and that can be a bit annoying because they have long fade effects, and to really make the color and the texture and everything about the visuals look juicier, they have to do a different cut. They have to cut away. So every fade, it has this lingering effect that lessens the quality of the film, and they don't cut away until like a minute or two later. There's a whole sequence which is constant fades and just everything's kind of washed out and ugly. But then when they cut to a good shot, it's like, oh wow, this is great, this looks fucking amazing. And then they go back to a fade. I'm like, no, not with the fades. Because they're such long fades and they don't cut to a different shot. It's my peeve about like a lot of fade-in transitions for old films like this. There is a film later on that I did watch where it could have been Viva Las Vegas, where they have the same thing. They'll fade between shots, but then they'll just, in the middle of a shot, just cut it, like the film print. There's your transition sequence, and the rest of it's normal. So then the colors suddenly, bam, just jump out at you. This one doesn't do it, unfortunately. But at the same time, you get a good cast, some good musical numbers. Yul Brynner's fantastic. The lead actress is really fun. Most of these cast-wise aren't too bad. But, yeah, it's definitely worth recommending. I gave it 4 stars. It's a really interesting narrative as it is. It's a lot of these you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt of it's talking about a period of time, which a lot of people get critical of. A lot of musicals set in a period of time where people are a certain way and a certain mindset, and it's like, yeah, it's telling a story. It's not trying to appease to your either modern mindset or just other actual mindsets of a modern time period, because most of the musicals I watched were like period based, you know. So me watching a film set in the 1900s that came out in the 1960s, watched by a 2020s audience, and guess what? People are going to call out its racism and say that that's bad. It's like, yeah, it depends. Is it actually being racist, or is it like being critical of it, or is it just showcasing a period of time? So just worth noting. That's the thing. It's a trend. But The King and I doesn't really have most of those issues, but it's definitely a film about cultural differences, and it's interesting on how it looks at that, because it's not just like culturals and like a white person going to an Asian land. It's also like monarchy and stuff like that, and like the British Empire versus people who have maybe more liberty and freedom, but also maybe subject people to much more crime and punishment. Again, the guy has how many wives? So it's like, you know, there are things that are culturally different. It's what makes the film interesting, gives it some juice. Then I watched South Pacific from 1958. This one I really loved. I gave this one 4.5 stars. The musical numbers are fun. The visuals are gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful film. Shot on location. All the Technicolor looks are great. They have all these parts where they'll just change the color of the film to be like, oh, we're gonna like take out one of the Technicolor prints and make it completely yellow, so it all washes over and gives this like mystical look. And they do that with pinks and reds, and it looks fantastic. They do it to evoke mood and to really pull up emotion and mysticism, and it looks fantastic. But it's also about World War II and these people being stationed on an island waiting to potentially bomb the Japs, but hey, the Americans aren't yet in the war at the time period of this movie. But it's also a romance about a woman who's a nurse falling in love with a French guy who murdered someone, but now he's got 2 Polynesian kids, whereas this other guy who's a lieutenant who falls in love with a Tonkinese girl, but then he's like, I can't marry you because you're a person of color, and my parents and my family and really everyone I know, including myself, would not approve because fuck, I'm racist? Oh, I had no idea. But then the nurse is like, I can't marry you, Mr. Frenchman, because you've had intimate relations with a person of color, and I'm racist. Oh, wait, I'm racist. And then they realize that they're racist, and the moral of the story is, hey, isn't prejudice kind of shit? So then the nurse realizes, you know what, love conquers racism. I want to be the guy. I'm going to take care of his kids until he gets back. He might die, but I'm going to take care of them because I have to put away any prejudice and just be a normal, respectful human being. And then the guy is like, damn it, I love this Tonkinese girl, even if back in the mainland Oklahoma or wherever the fuck he's from, he's like, I have this blonde hair, blue-eyed girl. I'm like, oh no, not the Aryan stuff. And I love her, but I also love this Asian girl. She's really cute, and oh no, I die off screen. How tragic. If only he was able to resolve his racism before being shot by the Japanese. They just kill him off screen. It's hilarious, but it's still a beautiful film. A lot of people are critical on Letterboxd because the film is racist. It's like the film itself isn't racist. The characters are racist, and then they get over their racism. It's a character arc. It's like really vital to a story to have a character arc, and if that happens to be a shit, I'm racist, maybe I'm not going to be racist anymore. Maybe that's the story arc. Fucking who'd have thought it, man, modern audiences. Woof. So again, trying to get a cultural perspective on these films. And also that's like the intention of the film is, hey, what if being prejudiced was bad? Which is hilarious because when it originally came out, a lot of people hated it because they're like, hey, you can't be with people of a different color because we're racist too. Hey, fucking hey, who'd have thought? What a crazy movie. Anyway, then we watched Gypsy from 1962, which I gave 3.5 stars. It's interesting because it's one of those films where it looks at like transitional periods through like musical history and going from like doing stage shows and like basically a woman forcing her kids to be on the stage because she's a failed actor, and then her daughter, who's Gypsy Rose, becomes a stripper, and then it's like, oh, that's immoral, but hey, you're getting good money for it. Maybe this isn't a bad thing, but hey, it's kind of immoral, but hey, you just invented the striptease. That's kind of iconic. But that happens right at the very end. The rest of the movie is about her mother, and it's like kind of annoying because she's not a fun character. Like, she's not a good person in general, and that's very much the point. And I'm like, I didn't pay to watch Gypsy Rose's mother's story. I paid to see Gypsy's story, and technically, sure, it is still her story rising to fame while her mother declines. But at the same time, and they kind of meet at the end, but I don't know. Natalie Wood's still great. It's got some interesting numbers and some interesting concepts. It just takes a bit. It's very long and drawn out, and the pacing's really kind of awful. But again, it's not bad for what it is. It's definitely an interesting film and reasonably iconic, if not could have been done better. But at the same time, it was also remade several times, including several different stage shows. So obviously, it's a popular enough narrative based on a true story to, continue in the, pop culture circumference or whatever you'd call it. I don't even bloody know. My nose is itchy. Then we go to 1964 with Mary Poppins. And Mary Poppins is wonderful. This was a fun rewatch. I gave her 4.5 stars. I watched it with my partner, which was just delightful. I haven't seen this film since I was a child, and the Blu-ray that they have looks fucking bee's knees. It's great too because it has a great classic DVD special feature showing you how they did the animated musical numbers, and it's so beautiful. It's a staple of Disney's live-action to animated crossover cinema. It is a tremendous film. Obviously, it's fun. The songs are iconic. It's weirdly political, from the suffragette movement to, hey, maybe capitalism is evil, but do we still suffice because banking? Did we pay the nanny to take care of the kids for 2 days? I don't think so. I think it was a week, but what did she do on her off day? I'm really curious about that. But again, Dick Van Dyke is great as well. He's so fucking wonderful in the movie. Any of the musical numbers that he has are so fun. The one where they're doing the chimney stuff is so fucking cool, and all the dancing in it, it's so fun. It's just such a beautiful film. Obviously, Julie Andrews is a fucking delight. You can't go wrong. It's just a bundle of joy. It's meant to be. It's designed that way. Who'd have thought? So, yeah, I think if it just Mr. Banks was a bit more interesting and not a fucking asshole, then I might have liked the film a bit more. I could have given it that masterpiece status, but I did not. Nevertheless, I then watched Viva Las Vegas from 1964, which, yeah, wasn't so ho-hum on Viva Las Vegas. This one I chose over King Creole, which I rectified immediately after by watching King Creole, but we're not going to talk about that yet. Viva Las Vegas is interesting in a generic way. It's very generic, churned out in a machine kind of musical, the kind of MCU of the day. Elvis is fine, and Margaret is way too wacky for my liking, but apparently it's to help her stand out above everyone else in the film. Not exactly above Elvis, but just above every other woman in the film, which is fair enough. The musical numbers are fine. Like, obviously, you get the Viva Las Vegas song, which they play it 3 times, at the start, in the middle, and at the end. The rest of them I don't think I remember, because they're very generic for the film kind of thing. Like, it's too situational to really like. Like, I know Viva Las Vegas, in theory, as a song, is pretty situational, but it's like, I don't know, it's also kind of like the concept of Vegas, which kind of works. Like, you can understand that from an outer Vegas perspective, whereas the song about how I'm a waiter, and I'm fucking with your dinner date. It's like, I don't really relate to that. So, yeah, I still gave it 3 stars. I think it's enjoyable, but it's also just like, according to my dad, the best of those generic musicals that he did. So, yeah, sure. If it's the best one, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I'm not big on it, but it's fine. Then I watched The Sound of Music from 1965, which I gave 5 stars, obviously. It is tremendous. It's... I've been to Salzburg. I can't... There's just so much bias I have of this movie. Growing up with it, rewatching it finally after all these years to see it on Blu-ray, and it looks so beautiful. It's so well shot. It's so emotionally captivating. The songs are fucking delightful and tragic. The story in the last 45 minutes becomes this insane thriller about Nazis. It's crazy. But wholeheartedly worth watching if you haven't seen it. It is the best of the Rodgers and Hammerstein films. I think, simply put, I think everyone would naturally agree on that. It's at least the most iconic of the films. And it's beautiful. Like, the way it just starts with sounds of just the mountains and everything before building up, and then we see, Julie Andrews, and she sings about the hills are alive with the sound of music, and you're like, oh, I get it, it's thematically rich, wonderful. I love when movies are actually about something. Who the fuck can afford it? Yeah, the romance is great, the Nazi stuff is dreadful, like in a terrifying way, not in a fun way, but a very thematically captivating way. Hell of a picture. 5 stars. And then I watched, which I was meant to watch Thoroughly Modern Millie, but I watched Yellow Submarine instead because it was shorter. On the day I was going out to watch a different film, doesn't matter. I watched Yellow Submarine. The Blu-ray is another 4K restoration. It looks fucking incredible. I grew up with this as well because my dad loves the Beatles. It's a big deal. And I love the film. I gave it 5 stars. I'm like, look, it's such a visually rich and interesting film. The narrative is very simple. Just, hey, we're in trouble. We got to go get some heroes that can help fight the bad guys. And it just happened to be the Beatles with their love and all that stuff, Who'd have thought it? I love how they narratively introduce the Nowhere Man, and it gives the song so much more depth by saying that he's literally just the loneliest guy in the world, which is still there in the lyrics. It's just more fun when you see it as a cartoon because it's depressing. It's just a really fun movie. It's so fun. It's so stupid that he has a hole in his pocket. So much dumb shit. I can't believe I bought that as a Lego set for my dad. What a great idea for a Lego set. Anyway, tremendous film. If you're a fan of the Beatles, if you love their music, if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch it. I was gonna watch A Hard Day's Night, but I went with Yellow Submarine instead because I'm like, it's a better film. It's just great. Then, of course, I watched Thoroughly Modern Millie. Oh yeah. This is from 1967, also of Julie Andrews. I gave it 3 stars. My criticisms is it's long and a bit dull. It's not the worst film. It's vaguely racist. Like, this is one where people criticize it being for racist. So I'm like, look, it kind of is because two of the main characters who are in the film the whole time, creepily, I might add, because they kidnap women, it's their thing. 2 Asian guys, one played by Mr. Miyagi, who are known as Oriental Man 1 and Oriental Man 2. It's not great. The plot, basically, outside of Millie being just friends with people in the 20s. It's set during the 20s. It's set during a certain time in New York where the Great Depression hasn't happened yet, and we're all doing this, what kind of musical numbers was it? Flapper style. That's the one. It's a Flapper style musical. A lot of dancing that's Flapper style. A lot of, hey, we're kind of doing a commentary on, the time period, but it's not a great commentary because it's kind of dull and still vaguely racist. And also, we're going to have this main plot that's going to kick in, mostly by the end of it, be that, which is still happening throughout the whole film, because it starts with a woman getting kidnapped, and then it's the woman who owns this hotel that they all go to stay at, the women stay at, that is, like a women's safety hotel, but the woman kidnaps women, and then gives it to her laundryman, I'm saying that in quotations, hold on, laundrymen, who just happen to be 2 Chinese men, who then they get taken to Chinatown, to a fireworks factory where they're held prisoner until they're exported off as white slavery. It's a really weird narrative, but apparently historically accurate. Who'd have thought it? Apparently that was a big thing back then. So, yeah, it doesn't do well at criticizing and being like analytical of it all, so it's not great for that reason, but it has some fun characters and at least a couple of fun numbers. It just feels like a waste of a lot of potential in every aspect possible. So, also the villain does speak Mandarin, but I don't know if she's speaking actual Mandarin or if it's like the kind of mixture of words that sounds like Mandarin that I really fucking hope actually means what she's meant to be saying, but I don't fucking know because I don't speak Mandarin. So anyway, yeah. That and the next one, both of which I bought because my friend had done commentaries on. The next one being, of course, Song of Norway from 1970. I gave this one a star and a half because it's really dull, awfully edited. The musical numbers are boring as shit. It's mostly people just sitting there singing at each other. One of them is just two guys sitting at a table. They sing at each other about how good friends they are, and just meanwhile, a montage of clips of Norway plays. That's it. That's the picture. Just clips of Norway. Look at these pretty mountains. There's one of them that was a montage where it had different periods of time showing the icy cold nature and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, well, clearly during this musical montage, you're going to cut to, and it's a couple years later, and these people are married and they've got a kid or something like that, because that would fit the narrative. And then no, it cuts to like a day later. I'm like, why would you have a montage that includes time passing, years in the passing, and then just it's a couple days later? Why would you do that? Yeah, did I mention it's really boring? The songs are just so dull. I really hate how long this is as well. It fucking sucks how boring this movie was. Because it was one I was looking forward to, and because again, two of my friends did a commentary track on this. I'm like, fuck, I have to rewatch this film now. That's going to be awful. But I can wait a couple years, you know. It's just dull. I really hope that in the commentary track, my friends kind of rip into the film a little bit. I don't think they will. I imagine they're going to be a lot more respectful to the film, which is fine. It could give me some positives to think about, but anyway, onto a good one. We have Fiddler on the Roof from 1971. 4.5 stars, politically biting, amazingly captivating, great costuming, great musical numbers, a great overall story, depressing. It's wonderful. You can't go wrong with 70s musicals. They fucking slap. Oh my god, talking about 70s musicals, Cabaret, 4.5 stars. Man, Bob Fosse, what a guy. This one was actually, this and Fiddler were both rewatches. They're very similar in talking about how it's people being subjugated by a opposing class, opposing force. You know, the Fiddler on the Roof is the Jewish communities getting kicked out of Russia. Actually, I don't even think it's Russia, but it's like a similar area. And it sucks. It fucking sucks. But hey, romance and stuff, that's always great, you know? But political uprising, ugh. Yeah, because they go to like Stalingrad or something, or Leningrad. I don't know. It's before the Russian Revolution, but I know my history. But of course, Cabaret is just as the Nazis are starting to take over. It's rough. It was the first film of its time musically to be like all the musical numbers are set in the cabaret. All the parts of people talking are outside the cabaret. Like, they still talk in the cabaret during some of the scenes, but for the most part, there's no singing outside of the cabaret. They don't even do it for fun. No singing, no emotional monologue. It's all just these fun musical numbers that are usually, like, satire or commentaries on just the casual anti-Semitism that the Germans had back then, and all the stuff of the Nazis. There's a lot of biting political stuff in this film, clearly. Like, it has this whole fake fight on the stage, and then it's intercut with people, like a bunch of Nazis beating up a Jewish guy. It's just, I don't even know if he was Jewish. He just doesn't like Nazis, and they just beat him up, and that's how it's intercut. It's really harsh, but it's really beautifully shot. It's so captivating. Liza Minnelli is so fucking good. It's got such a good cast. Such a good cast. It's also a really queer film, which is wonderful. Like, it has a bisexual character and such a fucking slap-in-the-face line to emphasize that. It's beautiful. It's one of the finest musicals you'll find out there because it's such a great drama and character study whilst also having fun musical numbers at the cabaret. It's just... Anyway, of course I followed that up with All That Jazz, because I'm a normal person. Oh, this tastes awful. It's fine, really. It's not bad wine. It's just... woof. Got to make the image look a bit gayer, so when I'm talking about musicals, it makes more sense. I'm not a wine person. But All That Jazz. Woof. What do I say about this movie? It's 5 stars. Okay, it's a masterpiece. I watched the Criterion. It's fucking beautiful. I haven't mentioned a lot of how I watched some of these. Like, most of them were Kinos for, like, Farley, Modern Millie, or Song of Norway. Further on the Roof was a standard Blu-ray. Cabaret was Warner Archive. All That Jazz is a Criterion, the 4K restoration. It is a fucking hell of a film. I did rate it higher than Cabaret, 5 stars. I think it is a masterpiece. It's just that musical number-wise, it's like none of it really like cements outside the film for me, which is very strange, because you'd think that like, oh, the big takeaway should be the musical elements. Like, does it, really shine as a musical that makes you remember the songs the next day? No, my memory fucking sucks. I can't remember most of these musicals after I've watched them, like in terms of the songs, so that's just on me. If I religiously listened to them, sure, but I didn't. I don't really want to. I didn't really want to have a different film's song stuck in my head while I'm watching the next film and its songs. Nevertheless, All That Jazz has a beautiful story. It's tragic, again, because it's Bob Fosse, and it's amazingly acted, amazingly directed, amazingly shot. Every fucking thing about this film is so goddamn amazing. It's a tragic story about the demise of a, amazing artist, whatever. It's very... It kind of feels pretentious in a way, but it also never really fully comes off as pretentious, because it doesn't shy away from just how fucked this guy is and his life and his decisions. Artist, y'all. Anyway, then in 1982, this gingerhead girl came out of the sewer. She's like, bam, I'm an orphan, call me Annie. It's Annie. Annie I gave 2.5 stars. Annie I was expecting big things from, to be fair. I've always known about Annie. I've never seen it. I've always known about the musicals. I watched the 4K restoration part of the Columbia Classic set, because it is just a fucking hell of a set. But I got it because my friend had worked on the commentary and a bunch of the interviews. Not credited on it. Can't hear his voice in any of it. It sucks. But he's the one who put it all together. And it's a fucking hell of a release. It even comes with Little Orphan Annie, the 30s film, which is crazy. The film itself, though, for Annie, as much as it's beautiful, it's got a great cast, it's got some fun numbers to it, iconic numbers as well, some really crazy dance numbers where you've got, like, little kids doing fucking backflips and shit. It's really aerobic and whatnot. Gymnastics, whatever the word for that is, anyway. I didn't love it. It's a film that is so high on the possibility that optimism is the only thing that exists, that it doesn't stop to consider how negative a lot of the film is. It's set during the Great Depression, or at least, yeah, it basically is. It's about a rich, white, bald billionaire who adopts, not really by choice, because he wanted a boy, an orphan, Annie, obviously, and, film comes to fall in love with her, adopts her, all that kind of bullshit, happiness, whatever. They find out that her parents died, maybe? I don't know. Her whole parents thing was, like, a big plot point that would turn out to be a lie, but instead of making it, like, a big deal as much as they did, they turned it into this twist of, oh, Tim Curry's character, who's the brother of the actual villain, who's the woman who owns the orphanage, him and his wife are going to come in and pretend to be Annie's parents, even though Annie never reciprocates any kind of feeling towards these people, because I feel like she always knew something was off. And then they just kidnap her, and then almost kill her. It's crazy. What a picture. And yet the movie ends, happy ending of course, where the billionaire doesn't, like, as much as Tim Curry's character and the wife go to jail, whatever, I guess, they don't really stipulate, the woman who runs the orphanage, who's clearly not a good person, who has been running all these kids into basically child slave labor, she doesn't get punished, and amazing performance from her, by the way. Some great fun numbers. She, the billionaire doesn't decide to adopt the rest of the girls in the orphanage, not in his big ass fucking mansion. Nor does he, do anything about the orphanage. He just lets the woman run the orphanage again. It's just like, that was the ending I expected. That he did this big valorous thing of, I'm going to save all these girls because clearly this woman is bad. I've been to the place. I saw her mistreat these girls. And I didn't decide once, I'm going to save them. I'm going to be the rich billionaire and not give a shit about the lower class. Me, the white bald guy saying this. But I'm not a billionaire. Anyway, I literally just shaved my head. Anyway, then we jump to, again, 1982, with One from the Heart, the Francis Ford Coppola musical. This was a tough one because it's not technically a musical, but technically is. I put it down on my list because it was considered a musical. It's a song and dance film. It has one song and dance number in the very middle of the movie where it starts with a duet with Terry Garr and Rahul Julia before expanding into a big flash mob in their Las Vegas strip mall set before the other couple have their individual number. It just goes up and then down again, at least narratively. It's really interesting for that whole sequence, but the rest of the movie, the music is mostly written by another guy and added basically in post, so most of the time you're hearing this guy singing stuff, which sometimes relates to the narrative, and he's never an on-screen presence or anything, and sometimes his music is just being sung over the top of people talking, so you don't know what they're saying because all you can hear is the music singing. And I'm like, why is this a thing? This could be a much more interesting narrative if I knew what the fuck these characters were actually thinking and feeling. Instead, you get like one or two songs telling you, the audience, what they're thinking when they're already in the middle of doing an action. Like they're deciding on the spot, hey, I'm sad and I want to change this. And the song is saying they're sad and they want to change this. And I'm like, imagine if they were acting and I could see that on their faces and through their performances. Oh wait, I can. Shut the fuck up, movie. It is visually beautiful. It's set all on stages. It looks incredible. Purposefully all on stages, that is. Immaculate 4K restoration. I watched the theatrical cut over the reprise because honestly, I'm good. I want to watch this for the first time as a theatrical cut. And it was really interesting. It was just also kind of thin. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's, again, great musical number in the middle, some great performances, amazing costuming and production design and visuals. The cinematography is fucking gorgeous. But then the movie itself is just very weak, I feel like, with its actual characters, the resolution to the plot. I understand what it's going for. This couple who've been together for 5 years or whatever, break up on their 5-year anniversary to find the people who are their perfect match. They find those perfect matches. One's like a pixie dream girl, the other one is Rahul Julia. And then they go through the turmoils of being with those people, realize maybe this ain't for us, and then get back together again. That's a simple narrative, but there's a lot of loopholes that they have to go through to get there, and it's kind of, it's okay. Then you get Pink Floyd The Wall. These are all 1982, holy shit. Don't worry, it's the last of the 80s. I've had this on DVD for so many years now, because I got it for like $15, and I've only now watched it. I'm not a big Floyd fan. I like some of their songs. You know, they got some great albums here and there, but it's very psychedelic stuff. You can't just really listen to that shit while you're on the fucking, I was going to say M80, but that's like such a Melbourne thing. While you're on the freeway, you can't just put this shit on. So, I put it on. 4.5 stars. Holy shit. It is very, again, like Yellow Submarine, very specific stylized animation, but it also has, again, all this great music that's all from this one interesting album that, again, works better when you have a visual accompaniment to it, because it's a very biographical, very, I'd say philosophical, very thematic narrative about how the generation of boys that basically lost their dads during World War II, who are traumatized by the loss of their parental figure, mostly the father figure, have to deal with that in their now Thatcherian-like, autocracy-like fucking England, where they're not allowed to be artistically liberated, which is ironic because it's during the period of time where artistic liberation was so big because it's the fucking 60s and the Beatles and like Led Zeppelin, all this shit was happening. The Rolling Stones, there's so much of the music stuff of that scene was happening then, and yet for the schoolboys it's like, nope, yeah, we're like a totalitarianisms, and then you're gonna get so traumatized you're gonna dream that you become a totalitarian overlord and basically create a new regime, and then maybe you die. I don't know. It's weird. It doesn't really end because it's technically a autobiography of like Rogers, whatever his name is, the main guy, who apparently I think went mad or something. But the narrative doesn't technically end because he's not dead or anything. He's still kicking. And this movie came out in the 80s. It's very weird. But I really liked it. I thought it was like visually amazing. It has some excellent moments. The music really pumps it in during some of the sequences. It is fucking extraordinary to watch sometimes. It's just such one of it almost feels a very egotistical art project, but it also feels like just a real confession of just trauma, but not in a pretentious kind of way, in a wow, this could like happen. Who'd have thought it? Anyway, then I watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame. How casual, from 1996. Another film about prejudice. It's kind of a theme, isn't it, in some of these films. I gave it 4 stars for it to be the third animation. Mm-hmm. Hunchback I'd never seen before. Renaissance period, Disney animation is hand-drawn, mixed with some CGI stuff. It works quite well. The characters are interesting. The songs are fun. The gargoyles are the worst fucking thing imaginable. But hey, then you got that one bad guy, Sabak, or whatever the hell his name is, Savok, or something. What was it? Frollo. Where the fuck did I get Sabak from? Frollo. Frollo's insane. He is so good. Demi Moore is Esmeralda. I don't have to say anything more. If you've seen the film, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. The characters are just really interesting and fun. It's really beautifully animated. It's captivating. It's one of the better of the Disney films from that time, which is saying a lot because there's a lot of fucking good Disney films in the 90s. Who would have thought it? But then I partnered that with 1998's DreamWorks film, Prince of Egypt, which I had also never seen before. This is the only one I streamed. Again, I had the others all on DVD or Blu-ray. And Prince of Egypt was really, really interesting. I gave it also 4 stars. Again, interesting, like, historical period film, technically of a mythos, the Exodus mythos. So there's a lot of that stuff I know from Sunday school. Of course, my partner, who I watched it with, didn't know what the Ten Commandments was. So I'm like, sure, I'll educate you, but that's the kind of what it is. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. It is just visually stunning, like the whole entire time. You get to the plague song and you're like, holy fuck, this shit slaps. It is incredible. It's an incredible experience. If you haven't seen it, it is one of the best animated musicals you'll ever see. It has some wonderful songs. My god, the fact that there are songs in these movies sometimes bewilders me. But it's wonderful. It's wholeheartedly worth watching. I probably would rate it higher on my next viewing. It's once I've really come to appreciate more of it, even though I still really like what I saw. But wholeheartedly worth watching. Then also introducing my partner to this because, Dancer in the Dark from 2000. Lars von Trier, Bjork, depressing musical. 3 things my partner I don't think even knew existed. And I had introduced myself to this movie a couple of years back because of a podcast I used to listen to, and still have the same DVD. Still works well. It's still a very interesting film. It is, again, long. It's like 2.5 hours, and it is tragic. But Bjork is fucking terrific. The music is really fun. The way it's shot, the choreography, even like the fact that it's shot all on digital cameras, so they could just put them all in one room and just shoot it all with all these different angles they can just cut to in post, is crazy filmmaking. I'm like, that's some ballsy stuff where you can just be like, yeah, they can just do it all in one take and we'll just like film it from like 20 different angles and then just cut it together and make it look like the coolest fucking thing you've ever seen. And the music is so goddamn good, but so is the story. It's captivating, the drama, the tension, the characters. It is so fucked up. It is such a fucked up story. If you don't want to watch a depressing musical, don't watch this. But it also is a commentary on musicals itself, because the film's main character, again, Bjork, is like, hey, you know, I love musicals. I want to be in a musical, but also I hate musicals because you can always tell when it's the last song because it's going to end, and I always leave before, like, when the second last song is on, and it's literally the movie telling you as an audience to leave before the second last, like during the second last song, which is crazy because the last song is really depressing, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you've been warned if you haven't seen it. But I definitely recommend it. It's very interesting. Again, 4.5 stars in case I didn't reiterate that before. But then I watched South Pacific from 2001. Yeah, I said I was done with Roger Hammerstein. Not technically a lie. This was a Kino DVD that I got that my friend had done a commentary on, as well as an audio interview with one of the actors, which helped me to realize that this was Glenn Close's passion project. She loved the original and always wanted to star in her own version. And it also took so many years to make that she technically out-aged the main, like, the character she's meant to be, which apparently is a problem for people. I think it's fine. Like, I guess her character's meant to be in, like, maybe her 30s or something in, like, the original, but then, like, in this one she's in, like, maybe her 40s-ish, and so is the love interest, so I'm like, yeah, that's cool, they're, like, the same age. Like, I don't give a shit about the age stuff, assuming it's not really fucked up, but this is like the most appropriate kind of aging you can get. So people criticize, and I'm like, what are you talking about? This is like fine. I gave it 3 stars. The problem is it's the exact same narrative as the original with just some minor tweaks so they can get more of that plot in the early part to really set everything up a little bit better. It is like 20 odd minutes shorter because I think they cut out a song and cut out a whole bombing sequence, which honestly I think was kind of better. It adds more comedy to the original film, but yeah, they keep in most of the same stuff. But it's just boringly shot. It looks boring. It's in 4:3 because it's made for TV. There's no Technicolor stuff. It's just, what if the original film was like a third the size and also it just looked boring as shit. It looks so bland. Even like the musical dance numbers are just so dull. There's no life to it. They just stand there and do things. It's not fun. It's like, it's just, I don't know. I wasn't having a great time watching. I'm like, it's still fine, but it's just, you know, it's not the worst film we've ever seen, but it's like, it clearly could have been a lot better had it just not existed, probably. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it unless you're a big R&H fan, or if you're, you know, purchasing the collection of Lee Gambon, it's one that you have to get. So again, the Kino DVD, and it's just okay, you know. It still talks about the fact that the characters are racist and whatever. It's still a big discussion point. It's, you know, thematically relevant. They have the exact same endings basically, except for that they change a little bit of the outcome differently, so that the guy who dies off screen in the original now gets blown up in a landmine in this one, which is really funny. But yeah, it's just not as interesting to me. Even if it's a shorter film, it's just not as interesting. Then I watched basically 3 almost masterpieces, if not masterpieces. And we got Chicago from 2002, which is probably my favorite musical that I've watched in this list, even though this is like my 3rd or 4th time watching it, because again, I grew up with it on DVD, watched it in university, and that was a big thing, because, hey, watching a musical of a bunch of teenagers or, you know, 19 to 20-year-olds who don't like musicals have to watch one of the greatest musicals of all time, and then they realize, hey, shit, maybe this stuff's actually good. All the numbers slap. It's visually fucking incredible. The audio mix, the sound, the characters, the costuming, oh my god. It's just fucking incredible. Like, it's one of those films where I would wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone. It does the Fosse thing of having a lot of the musical numbers be almost surrealist dream sequence takes, which is really, really unique. No one's actually singing at each other. There is the cabaret moment at the start of the film, which is more or less a homage to Cabaret itself, the movie, because again, a lot of this was based on Fosse's original choreography and stuff for his stage production, which became the movie, so he's still credited for the film despite, again, dying like 15 years earlier. It's got an amazing cast. Richard Gere, Catherine... No. Oh, god damn it. I had a goddamn name in my mind. Renee Zellweger. Oh, it was Catherine. Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's a beautiful cast. It's just so fun. all the musical numbers, I'm just like so accustomed to. Every single time one comes, I'm like, yes, it's this one, I love this one. And the next one came out, like, yes, it's this one, I love this one. They're so amazingly portrayed. There's one whole number of Renee Zellweger where she's just like in a black void, and I've got this Blu-ray version that apparently is color graded in Dolby Vision, which is insane for a standard Blu-ray, but has a beautiful 7.1 mix, and she's just sitting there. Now, I've got an OLED TV, so it really punctuates the blacks. So she's just there, almost like levitating. And then suddenly there are mirrors popping up, just weirdly, in all these weird ways. I'm like, how are they doing that? And then suddenly these guys start showing up, but then they also vanish as quickly as they come by. It's such an amusing, beautifully shot sequence. Oh my god, I gave it 5 stars. It is such a fucking tremendous film. One of the best. I really would love to shoot this on, like, the stage. That would be really interesting. I've heard it's very good as an actual stage production. I've heard most of these are great as stage productions, but I don't care to watch most of these as stage productions. But Chicago, I'd love to watch as a stage production. Then we have Inside Llewyn Davis for my 2013 film, which is a folk song film. It's the Coen Brothers film. I gave it 4 stars. It's definitely an interesting film for it being in its own right a black comedy. I didn't necessarily find a lot of it to be funny, but again, on reminiscing, I realized actually that was kind of funny for certain sequences. If you like, Bob Dylan-esque folk music, if you like period piece from the 60s, it's very interesting to that degree. Like, I don't dislike Bob Dylan, but I don't love his music a lot, but I still saw him live once and could understand what he said, so that's on me. But I got to see him live. That's a unique experience, I guess. But the film is very visually beautiful. It's amazingly performed. It has some great actors, some great cast, amazing direction, a really interesting story because it's almost a non-linear narrative and it's very weirdly portrayed. It's beautiful. It's a really beautiful film that I definitely will come to appreciate more as time goes on. So I imagine my rating will go through the roof because most of the people I know gave it like 5 stars, which I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. Because the thing is, for me, for Coen Brothers films, you either love it on the first go as this is just everything you wanted in the picture, or it's, man, this is really good, I'm going to rate it highly, but also, I need to dig into it just a little bit more. And then, of course, my last film for the 28 films is Wicked. Obviously. I gave it 4.5 stars. I was really surprised by this film. I thought it was really fun, vibrant. I know people complained about the visuals and stuff, but I really enjoyed it visually. I thought it was just dazzling. The story was really interesting. Cynthia Erivo was tremendous. I was a bit critical of Ariana at first because she was very high-pitched, but apparently it's like a character thing where she becomes, like, the more evil, I guess, she becomes, the lower the pitch goes. There's all these really interesting elements to it. The cast is really interesting. I didn't expect it to be such a film, again, about prejudice, even though she's green, but it's more or less the animal prejudice stuff that's the more narrative-focused kind of stuff. Not even narrative-focused. It's like a subplot that becomes like, hey, that's like the twist. Yeah, visually I thought it was really nice, because again, despite it being the CGI blockbuster, which, man, that's a hell of a way to come for musicals, it really pulls some interesting punches, and I thought it was just really powerful, and by the end of it, I was like, man, I can't wait for part 2. This has swept me off my feet. I am, I guess, pun intended. Now, of course, before I do my analysis of the whole entire thing, let's look at all of the other musicals I watched throughout the month. I watched The Red Shoes, which I gave 5 stars on the Criterion 4K. Immaculate film. I've seen it before, but really just amazing. We have Becoming Led Zeppelin, which I count in it because it is a musical biopic, technically. Like, it's a documentary about these musicians, about this band. You get musical numbers. It was a whole thing. Got to watch it in IMAX, which was really fun. It's an interesting, like, start to their legacy kind of documentary that I would definitely worth recommending if you're a Led Zeppelin fan. It was beautiful in IMAX because it really encapsulated the soundscape really nicely. Then we have King Creole, again, because Viva Las Vegas was kind of a slog. I watched King Creole and it's like, hey, this has much better musical numbers. Also, it's a much more captivating narrative. It's beautifully shot in black and white. Elvis can act. It's like, this is 4.5 stars. This is a fucking excellent film. Wholeheartedly worth recommending. If you're going to watch any Elvis film, you watch King Creole. It's probably his best. It is insanely good. It's an insanely good narrative and film and dramatic story that has some great musical bits to it, which again are in the actual world of it, where he's singing because he's a performer, not just singing because it's a musical. Very much a different state for a lot of them. Like Red Shoes is a movie about people making a ballet, so they do the ballet, and that has a beautiful sequence where they're doing all this blue screen ballet stuff and have all these wonderful visuals where it like has stuff that you can't perform on an actual stage, but they do it so perfectly in the film that it just works. And I'm like, yes, that makes sense because it's a movie and you can do that, but you can't do it on the real stage. But I don't care because this looks so good, and it just has this mysticism to it. The Red Shoes are so beautiful. We have Sweet Charity because I was ended up doing all my Bob Fosse films that I own. I even watched Lenny, but that's not a musical. But I watched Sweet Charity, which I gave 4.5 stars as well. I thought that was really fun. Shirley MacLaine is a fucking joy. The movie's so fun. It's beautifully dazzling. It's a very interesting story about a sex worker. It's got so many interesting aspects to it. And I think it's very undervalued as a film, and I think it's wholeheartedly worth watching. If you like Cabaret, if you like all that jazz, you fucking need to watch Sweet Charity. Tremendous film. I mean, just anything with Shirley MacLaine is probably a banger to begin with. I mean, she's so fucking good. Then Little Shop of Horrors, because my brother wanted to watch it with his partner, and I'm like, well, if you're going to watch it, you're going to do two things. Firstly, I'm joining, and secondly, director's cut. Fucking director's cut, baby. I watched this last year as the director's cut, which is the third time I've watched it as the director's cut. I think I've seen the theatrical maybe 3 times as well. I did a stage production of this in high school. Holy shit. I was in the band. I played the saxophone and the clarinet, because I'm talented. Anyway, we watched this last year at the Astor, so I wasn't expecting to rewatch it this soon, especially why I didn't have it on my list to watch for musicals. It is my favorite musical. I love it because it's a monster movie, and it's a great just musical in general. I even showed my brother's girlfriend the original ending because she hadn't seen it, and she was like, the monster movie ending is much better. And seeing that on the big screen at the Astor last year was beautiful. It was my friend's birthday screening, technically, and it was beautiful. It was a wonderful screening. It was a wonderful time, and it is a wonderful film. It's such a fucking good film. The music is wonderful. I love it. I love it so much. I need the CD. This is such a good fucking beautiful movie. Again, it's another reason I didn't want to include it in my list, because I'd seen it so many times, especially of recent. I'm like, I don't want to include it because it's going to overshadow fucking everything. So that's why it's technically not on the list. I just happened to watch it. Then we also had, after I watched Cabaret, I watched Liza with a Z, or Liza with a Z. In this case, it's Liza with a Z, which is a musical because it's Liza on stage, directed by Bob Fosse, doing singing and dance stuff. And it's pretty fun, for a stage show. It's fun. Liza's really charming. She's got a great fucking voice. It's got some really fun direction. You can find it on YouTube for free. It's wonderful. Wholeheartedly worth checking out if you're interested in Liza Minnelli or Bob Fosse. It's a good double feature to have with Cabaret because there's a lot of musical numbers that are from Cabaret that weren't sung by her in the movie. So you get some difference there, which is quite fun. I also watched An American in Paris, which was suggested to me a lot earlier on to watch, and this is again because I was on a Minnelli binge from Cabaret to Liza with Z to now this, which is the other to Dad. And this one's amazing. Again, Gene Kelly. You'd think, Julian, Sound of Music, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, I know, but I've seen Sound of Music a lot of times, Singing in the Rain. I've seen that movie a lot of times, and I love that movie, and again, that's why would be a good double feature with, like, the Red Shoes. But I wanted to watch American in Paris because I had just never seen it, so I watched the DVD. Really fun. It's a interesting story, fun characters. I wish it was actually filmed in Paris. That would have been great, especially because there's one I watched which was filmed in Paris and is a fucking disaster, but we'll get to that in a second. But it's fun. Gene Kelly's great. He just tap dances, bunch of people hanging out with him. It's very artsy-fartsy. And the last, 20 minutes is just an insane musical number that is, holy shit. And now I say that because outside of watching Fame, rewatching because I had a head cold halfway throughout this list, who would have thought it, and Fame is again a favorite of mine, revisiting it, gave 4.5 stars. It was one of my friend's favorites, and I love it. I would have even watched Godspell, but I just didn't get around to it because I'm I'm reserving Godspell for another time. I might do a 70s musical list as well, because I've got to watch other ones. Like my friend, this is Lee Gambon I'm talking about, my friend who loved musicals. He did a whole book talking about movie musicals in the 70s. A whole book dedicated it from 71 through to 1980. I think he might have talked about 1970 as well, but at least there's like an epilogue talking about 1980, so he still talks about Fame, because of course he would have fucking talked about Fame. And I love Fame. It's beautiful. It's so fun. It's such an interesting, unique narrative. Such an interesting way to do a musical. Because it's a bunch of like art school kids just doing art school stuff, doing singing, doing dancing, doing acting, and it's such a really great encompassing aspect of all of that as they're all trying to achieve fame. It's a fucking tremendous film. In contrast, Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, I gave it 1 star. Fucking awful. It was just an hour long. It was part of my Blu-ray set for Hunchback. The music is fine, I guess, but it's mostly just a, hey, what if we just did really bad animation and character assassinated everyone and ruined the narrative of the original? So I would wholeheartedly never recommend this to anyone. It's awful. I gave it 1 star. The guy lost to a bird. Anyway, Gigi, 1.5 stars. I can't believe this won 9 Oscars. Again, it was a Vincente Minnelli. I bought it the same day as the Elvis film on Blu-ray, so I was like, I should watch it. It's apparently really well regarded. On the back of the Blu-ray saying won 9 Oscars. That must mean it's good. That mustn't mean that the first musical number is how the film is about pedophiles, but like in a positive way. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can't just have your first song be about how you love little girls. That's not good. And then the movie's about grooming. It's about a 30-year-old man grooming a teenage girl. They don't stipulate her age, but apparently in the original she's like 15. Fuck. Played by the same girl 7 years later who was the lead romantic interest in An American in Paris. She was 26 when they made the movie, which is fair. So she wasn't actually a teenager when they made it, which is fair. But she acts like a teenager really well. Surprisingly good actress, who would have thought? And visually, the film is quite nice. It has some interesting musical numbers, and no. It just looks pretty because it's Technicolor. The movie fucking sucks. It's awful. It's boring. It's long. It's awful. It doesn't have dance numbers. Not a single dance number. It's just people standing and singing. Sometimes that's fine. In this case, it's not, because it's just about grooming and pedophilia. It's fucking bad. Do not watch that movie. And then the last one that was an extra was Amadeus, because I got the 4K theatrical cut, and that's a musical. It's about a guy it's about Mozart. Really good. I gave it 4.5 stars. That was a joy to watch. I also watched Industrial Symphony No. 1, The Dream of the Brokenhearted, which features Julie Cruz. It's a David Lynch, Angelo Badalamenti, 50-minute long music video, basically. You can find it on YouTube with an interesting 4K restoration. I just kind of felt like chucking this on as well, because, it's part of my David Lynch list that I'm going through, and it's a musical, technically. It's a big stage production with a bunch of musical songs directed by David Lynch. It's very weird. I would highly recommend watching it. I gave it 4 stars. Very good. So anyway, looking at this whole list of 28 musicals from 1936 through to 2024, what do I think? The fact that of all of them, I wasn't annoyed, realistically, by many of them. The ones that did frustrate me, make me disinterested the most, were the ones that were either the least captivating, like Song of Norway, because it's visually, despite all the stock footage of Norway, poorly edited, boring characters, boring music, or it's insanely insulting, like Gigi, which again was not on the list, but it was one that I watched, or the other one, Carousel. Stuff like that, where it's just like huge oofs, like this is just bad. Something that's middle of the road that's iconic and very well known, being Annie, is such an interesting dissonance to the rest of them. Seeing the stuff evolve from black and white 30s, mostly tap dancing musicals with, again, Fred Astaire, which is strange because 2 films later I got the color film where he's now the aging artist, to then go through to a lot of the 50s and the 70s, and again, watching the 50s and 60s and 70s films in their Technicolor or Eastman color or deluxe, some of them look so fucking beautiful that it's just an amazing body of cinema to see these films. Like, visually, they look so lush and the music is usually really iconic, or at least really fun and captivating, and just generally good. I like the ones where they will occasionally just do a random dance number that's just a surreal dream sequence, basically. I dig that kind of stuff. That's really fun. You're watching Oklahoma with your bro, and you're like, hey, they're singing. That's cool. Oh, look, there's a dance number, man. I'm trying to. What am I even trying to say here? Um, Imagine you're in the 50s. You're a woman. You go on a date with your boy to go to the drive-in to see Oklahoma, and it's like, man, look, vistas, Oklahoma musical. Look at this rough, tough man and this beautiful gal. And then she has a dream sequence, and suddenly it's ballet, and you're both like, ugh, ballet. That's kind of, hey, this looks pretty cool. I don't know, because homophobia. Don't you hate it? Anyway, so yeah, a lot of the films play it safe in terms of morals and certain dynamics. There are films that do touch on racial themes, whether it be prejudice or just racist, because either the film's characters are racist, and that's like their theme is to, hey, maybe we should character arc and not be racist by the end of the picture. There are really interesting things like that, where the musicals aren't just two people love each other, then they hate each other, then they love each other again. I didn't really have any of that in this whole list. Like, aside from like One from the Heart, which only had one actual fucking musical number, most of these didn't do that, and I kind of really dig that. Like, some of them were like just political struggles, or just, hey, we're in Vegas and we're in love and it's fun, Viva Las Vegas, whatever. Or personal struggles like with Gypsy, or period drama struggles like with, South Pacific or Sound of Music. There are so many fun ones like that, and again, there are some here that aren't hugely musical. Court Jester and again One from the Heart aren't necessarily big musical films. They just happen to have a song or two in them, and it's still part of the plot. It's one of them has a more fantastical element, One from the Heart, but then which is more of like a homage to Broadway musicals, whereas like Court Jester, it's in the narrative that he just is a performer, so he will sing songs because everyone's listening to him sing a song. And some of these films are like that as well, where people will sing songs, and if it's like, the Fred Astaire one, or like a Gene Kelly one where there's a whole tap dancing thing and everyone's just staring at you guys just doing your song and dance, and it's just like you're doing this as a thing and people are reciprocating, looking at this like, hey, they're doing a performance, isn't that fun? There were extras where they're all just looking at these people, they're just charming people doing song and dance numbers, or the songs are restricted to just being on stage productions or in a play, or there's the songs where again they're just singing their heart's desires. There are so many variations to the musicals that I think was the most interesting aspect to it. Not just because of the visual language, and occasionally they would tap dance, or they would just do ballet, or whatever dancing, or Bob Fosse's style of dancing, or choreography, which I found to be much more interesting than people just standing and singing each other. Like, that's the least interesting one. Occasionally you'll get a great song out of it. Again, I'm pretty sure State Fair won an Oscar for like best song because the girl just sat in the windowsill and was like, I'm sad, I wish I had a boyfriend. Where? And that's an Oscar winning song. Like, this shit means fucking nothing. Gigi winning 9 Oscars is a bunch of wanky bullshit. But at the same time, that's also such a big film on that stand there and just sing at nothing. Yeah, I think I got more interested as they went along, but again, every once in a while it would dip. Like, I'd still have, like, Sound of Music and Yellow Submarine, absolute classics, absolute bangers, and then get Farley Modern Millie and Song of Norway and be, like, worn out. But then Fiddler on the Roof and Cabaret and all that jazz, holy shit, this almost revolution of musicals in the 70s, where they're insanely strong on political discourse and are just really fun, even if like Fiddler on the Roof is basically the guy stands there and sings, or the girl stands there and sings, but it's fun music, it's good characters, it's done in such a unique style as well, very like culturally relevant for it being a commentary on Jewish society. It's really interesting how they do stuff like that to give more diversity within the films themselves. where Cabaret and all that jazz reserve the musical numbers to be either dream sequency or on the stage as production numbers, so all the drama can just happen outside of that, and it doesn't have to be sung at each other, which is probably most people's more preferred musical, where it's like you're watching a stage show. And again, Fosse would shoot the films like you're in the audience watching a stage show. You're never really a part of the act. You know, maybe you're behind the scenes, looking from the curtains, the side-on angle, or you're just right below it all happening. You're looking at it from a distance, you know? The films are treating you like an audience, whereas other films are treating you like you're meant to empathize, you're meant to be this person. So there's so many distinctions between them. That's why it's such a run of my thoughts of just how I'm thinking about all of these. But then you get the psychedelic stuff with, like, Pink Floyd's The Wall, or even, you know, Dancer in the Dark. But all of them are still commentaries on emotional states and, like, well-beings, and just, like, commentaries on political natures as well. Like, so many of these films are so political, you know? Like, Dancer in the Dark has commentaries about, like American society in the 60s, talking about communism, talking about, like, immigration, mental health. Being blind is, like, the main fucking thing about the film. This aspects of character and honesty. There's so much rich qualities to these films. You know, again, Pink Floyd The Wall is about the stolen generations and, like, just generational trauma and fascism. Hunchback of Notre Dame is about trauma and fascism. Prince of Egypt is about trauma and fascism. Oh my god, they're all about trauma and fascism, aren't they? Chicago isn't, but it is about women's prison systems and how they're really shit. And then Wicked's about witches and stuff. Hey, they're pretty. So, I think, if anything, I love that I can just jump into any period of time and still have that mindset of, I can see where this is going for. I can see the type of musical it is for the time period. Again, like watching State Fair is like, it's generic, in general, film. It even ends with a tag saying, make sure to support your troops. The film that came out between them killing Hitler and bombing Japan twice. Like, this is the bridging gap in history, State fucking Fair. It's a film that's just trying to upkeep the American, you know, country way of life. Yay, we raise pigs, we, you know, make food, we romance the neighbor. Black people don't exist, you know. It's America. Woof. But still, you know, you take it with a grain of salt because you realize it's going for a very specific attitude. You know, should I have watched more films that were maybe, if I was to be really critical of myself, should I have watched more queer-coded films or stuff about, you know, again, people of color? But then at the same time, you know, Prince of Egypt, despite having a white voice cast, is about, you know, African people. It's set in fucking Egypt. It's about, you know, Hebrew people. A lot of these are about Jewish people, which is interesting. So I'm still watching films that are about people of different cultures and whatever. It's interesting. But again, that's just how film is. You can take such a minute selection that spans 90 years and get so many different variations and different things. I mean, even, like, I feel like the most queer film I watched was Cabaret, just full out. And it almost feels like the most queer thing to do, realistically, is to watch musicals in general. Which, I don't think you have to, like, almost suppress yourself to that kind of mentality. Like, sure, if you're a homophobe and is like, yeah, musicals are just for the queers, yeah, fuck off. But also, what can I say about it? Like, I really like musicals, you know, but I'm also in a certain bracket, so it's like, yeah, it's interesting, but it's just nice to watch them as films as well. Like, you don't have to distance yourself from, like, a certain point of view. Like, you just watch it because you can, you know. Like, it'll be like me watching a bunch of, you know, Italian slasher films and people saying, you're a freak because you watch Italian slasher films. I'd be like, yeah, what of it? They're really interesting and they're really fun, you know, and I get a kick out of it, you know. Most of them are pretty sexist anyway. Or they're not, because they usually got final girls. See? Proto-slasher films, my guy. So yeah, I definitely think I really enjoyed this period of time watching all of these films. It was definitely very, very interesting to watch a lot of them. The fact that I was able to actually watch all of these films and still watch other films in the meantime. I ended up totaling 54 movies in February. 40 were musicals or music-based films, because again, some of them were like the Led Zeppelin, like the docudrama and stuff some of them were like that. Well, they weren't actually musicals; they were just musically themed. My friends jokingly said that Moonstruck, which I also watched because it was a Cinemaniac screening, was a musical, but it's like, it isn't a musical. It just has musical sequence-like things, but it's not a musical, you know? It's just a drama. A comedy drama. A dramedy. So yeah, hopefully you've gotten some kind of a takeaway of some interesting films that you may not have ever heard of to take a look at. But yeah, either way, there'll be a list down below of the 28 films that I did watch. Yeah, I think my favorite decade is either the 50s or the 70s. It's hard to say sometimes because I didn't watch a lot of 70s films, but there's a lot of 70s films that I just generally love in terms of musicals. But like the 50s and 60s ones, you get some great Technicolor stuff. And then the black and white ones still look great. There's a lot of dancing to them. I don't know, there's so much fun stuff to watch in these musicals. They should have a musical that's like a horror film. And that has like Tim Curry. Imagine all those three things in one film. Anyway, thanks for watching. Been a long one, but hope some kind of a takeaway has been taken from this video. I've enjoyed myself. See you next time. Adios.